Well, good morning, church. Good morning. Good morning to those of you watching online. We're glad you're here. I am excited to be here today for the first time in 2020. My name is Nick Goelz. I'm one of the teaching pastors here at FBCW, soon to be known as Family Church. Huh? I got to say, I'm very excited about this. This church has been a family to my wife and my girls and I for the last 6 years, so it just feels right to say. And I'm very excited to see what God is going to do in this church come March and through this year. And so my prayer for all of us is that we would each be excited about what God is doing here in our community and through this church, and that we would find new ways to just fall deeper and deeper in love with Jesus, because he is worthy of all of our love. Amen? Well, before I jump into the message today, I do want to take just a minute and address the skinny jeans not in the room. Of course, I'm talking about Marcio. For those of you that have been here for a while, you know that Marcio has taken on a lead pastor role at another church in the area, and we are really excited for him and his family, excited that he's going to get to be used by God in a new capacity, and that his church is going to get to experience his unique brand of leadership and of teaching and wardrobe and all that good stuff. We're really excited for him. But change is hard. We can admit that change is hard. Marcio is a very close friend of mine, and I'm going to miss seeing him here Sunday mornings. But I do believe with all of my heart that God already has somebody picked out to bring here to this area and to be excited about our community and excited about our vision. And he's going to use that person in the same way that he used Marcio. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who's standing up here. As long as that person has a heart for Jesus, he can use every single one of us. So today, we are kicking off our first sermon series of 2020. And what we really believe is that for us to accomplish our vision as a church and to see people in Winter Garden and Windermere and Four Corners and wherever else he's calling us to see them come and know Jesus, it's going to take every single one of us. So what we're going to do over the next few weeks is we're going to look at what it means when we say go and be the church. Now, if you've been here for a little bit, I don't want you to think that this is just a recap of our beat classes. But after we introduce the idea today, we're going to look over the next few weeks at real practical ways that every single one of us can get in the game, can get in the fight, and be involved in the mission of Jesus. And the first way we're going to do that, and we're going to talk about today, is we need to be light. We need to be light, because light is powerful. Light is reality changing. Light reveals truth, and light saves lives, because light changes everything. That's our bottom line today, is that light changes everything. Just a couple weeks ago, my oldest daughter, Savannah, she's going to be 4 in a couple of months. She got up in the middle of the night from a bad dream, and she came and she crawled into our bed, and she slept there. So the very next night, I put her to bed, and a few minutes later, she comes out and she says, "Dad, Mom, I can't sleep. There's monsters in my room. I can't sleep. It's scary in there." And I said, "Savannah, there's no monsters in your room, I promise." She said, "No, there is. There's monsters in there. I want to sleep in your bed." And I'm like, "Well, that ain't happening 2 nights in a row." So as an adult, I knew there was nothing to be afraid of in her room. But I also knew that me telling her that wasn't going to change anything for her. It wasn't going to change the reality. She could see that there were monsters in her room. It was dark, and she couldn't prove otherwise. So I said, "All right, let's go look." I grabbed my flashlight. We went down to her room. I said, "Where do we need to look?" She said, "Under the bed." I said, "All right, you got to look with me." And so we looked under the bed. No monsters. I said, "Well, let's check the closet just to be on the safe side." We looked in the closet. No monsters. I gave her the flashlight, let her look all around the room and see that everything was safe. Tucked her back into bed. She said she felt better. And that would have been the end of it. Except it wasn't. The next night, she did it again. Except this time she came down the hallway and she said, Dad, there's monsters in my room. I can hear one." That scared me a little bit. She was very confident that she could hear a monster. And I said, "Well, honey, we talked about this yesterday. There's nothing there." She said, "No, get your flashlight. Let's go." All right. So I grabbed my flashlight. We walked back down to her room. And just before I looked under the bed, I had a thought pop into my mind. And maybe this has happened to you too if you've been in a situation. What if there really is a monster under this bed? I'm not equipped at all to deal with this. I'm in sweatpants. I'm getting ready for bed. I have no weapons, no plan of action. What do I do? But I'm the dad, so I got to be brave. And so we looked underneath the bed. And I kid you not, there were two eyes looking back at me. And for a second, I died. Until I realized it was the dog. Our dog had found its way into Savannah's room and under the bed and was wreaking havoc there. So I got the dog out of there, and I put Savannah back in bed, and we laughed about it. But see, it took light the first night to show Savannah, hey, there's nothing here to be afraid of. And the second night, it took light to say, hey, you know, maybe there is something there. But light reveals the truth of the situation so that we can face the problem. Because light changes everything. But before we look today at, you know, how we can be light and what that even means, we have to understand the need for light. Why do we even need light? The truth is because darkness exists. Darkness is a real thing. And it's not just in the bedroom of a 3-year-old. We can see darkness all around us. Just flip on the news. We see darkness on a personal level. We see it with people that we know and we love. We see people dealing with depression and even thoughts of suicide. People stuck in the darkness of addiction, unable to overcome it. We see self-gratification celebrated. It's all about me, me, me. What can I do for me? In the culture, we see things like the killing of the unborn celebrated when laws are passed to make it legal. Things like euthanasia are brought up. Sexual liberty is the most sought-after freedom. It's something to be worshipped. For the first time in culture, it's normal to be godless. It's normal to be the God of our own lives. Darkness is real. But why? Why is there so much darkness? Well, the God of this age, Satan, he is working around the clock to keep people in the dark. He's working non-stop. The Apostle Paul, he explains this a little more. Paul was a follower of Christ. He planted churches all over the first century world. He wrote most of the New Testament. And in a letter to the church in Corinth, in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, look at what he says. He says, in their case, they being the unbelievers. See, right before this in verse 3, Paul says, there are people that are perishing. People are dying. He writes very urgently. He said, there are people around you right now who are dying because the gospel is hidden from them. He says, in their case, the God of this age has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Satan does not stop trying to keep people blind, trying to keep people in the dark, because he knows something that we know here too, that when someone looks at the face of Jesus, they are looking at the glory of God. To look at Jesus is to see God and all of his love and his grace and his truth wrapped up into one. And Satan knows that when people start to see the light of Christ, he's already lost. So he doesn't stop whispering to people, keeping people distracted, keeping people doubting. He says, look, don't worry about that stuff over there. Just focus on your career. Focus on your career. That's for another time. This relationship, I think this is the one that's going to make you happy. You know, yeah, I know you said you want to be a little more like financially responsible this year, but you know, you deserve it. And when the distractions don't work and people do start to notice Jesus and start to notice the light and start to ask questions, then he starts to whisper doubts into their life. He says, hey, you think that's for you? That's not for you. You know what you've done. God can never love you. God can never forgive you. He keeps people wrapped up in darkness. It is a real spiritual battle that is going on around us. People really are spiritually blinded. And so the first thing we need to do as Christians and as a church is we need to commit to praying for those around us that need to see the light, which is everybody. It's the reason why as a church we're going to come together at 6 a.m. like Troy said this week, and we're going to pray through the week for our community and for our nation and for our family and our loved ones. Pray that God will open spiritual eyes. Pray that hearts will be softened so that this area in our country will see the light of Jesus. So where is this light? Where is this light? How can we change things when it feels like we are surrounded by so much darkness? Well, as always is good practice, we look to the words of Jesus in Scripture. And one of Jesus' followers, Matthew, he wrote the first book in the New Testament. And there he recorded one of Jesus' most famous messages, the Sermon on the Mount. And if you're looking for a place to jump into the Bible this year, maybe the Bible reading in a year plan hasn't worked out for you, just start with Matthew. Maybe spend a few weeks right here, chapters 5, 6, and 7, just focusing on a few verses at a time. Watch how God speaks into your heart. But in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus has just finished up the Beatitudes. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the humble." And then he looks out at the crowd, and he looks at his followers, his disciples. And in verse 14, he says this. He says, "You are the light of the world. You are the source of light in the world." Imagine being this group of people that have only been following Jesus for a short time. They've only been with him a short time, and now Jesus says, "Hey, you're responsible. It's going to be up to you to take my message of hope, of salvation, of light out into the dark." And he didn't just single out one person in the crowd. He didn't just look at Matthew or at Peter. He said, "You, my followers, the church, you collectively together need to go and be the light in the world. You're going to be the extension of my ministry." And the best part is he said, look, there's no training required. There's no orientation class for this. When you give your life to Christ, that is when you say, "Look, God, I know I've been wrong. God, I know I've been doing things my way. I've put myself in the number one spot, and I don't want to do that anymore." You say, "Jesus, forgive me of my sins. Teach me to live a new way. Let me follow you." When you do that, you are now light. You are light for the next person that you come across. Jesus continues. He says, "A city situated on a hill cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but rather on a lampstand. You don't go to Lowe's, pick yourself out a new light, and then hide it away somewhere. You want to light up the room. You want people to see it." Jesus says, "It gives light for all who are in the house." Circle the word all. We're going to come back to that. It says, "In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." See, Jesus didn't change you. He didn't make you a new creation. He didn't make you light to then hide you away. He wants people to see you. He wants to say, "Look, everybody, come look. Look at Nick. He used to be a mess. Now he's less of a mess. It's a work in progress. But look at what I'm doing in his life." He wants people to see you serving like he served, loving like he loved, forgiving like he forgives. Because when we do that, we point back to him. And it puts a smile on Jesus' face when we are going out into the dark and pointing back to him. But I love that Jesus said that this light, it gives light for all. See, the prophet Isaiah, he would write in the Old Testament that there would be a light for all nations. And that was scandalous then. To say that Jews and Gentiles alike, every person, this light is for you. This is Jesus. And that might be news for some of you this morning. In a group this large, there's likely someone here that never realized this is for me. Because Satan has been blinding you for so long. You've been stuck in the dark so long. But Jesus is speaking right now and saying, "Look, I did this for you. I died for you. This light, it's for you. I want to reach into your life and give you hope." And I'm praying this morning that your eyes would be open, that you would realize that today. But for those in the room who are Christians, those who are followers of Christ, well, we need to commit this morning to being the light. We need to be light. And for that to happen, there's a few things we need to know in your notes. The first one is this: if you have it, don't hide it. If you have the light, don't hide the light. Now, I'm a firm believer in practicing what you preach, so I'm not going to hide my light anymore. I'll pull it out here for you guys. If you've heard of the song, "This Little Light of Mine," well, this is his big brother on steroids. Once you follow Jesus, once you give your life to Christ, you now have the light. And there is nothing that you can do to change that. Nothing will change the fact that you now have light, because the source of your light, Jesus, does not and will not change. But you can choose what to do with it. We can choose to show it to people, to say, "Hey, look, I've got something that you need. I've got something that can change your life. Or we can just choose to hide it. We can just choose to just pretend like we don't see the needs around us and keep our lights hidden. When I was 16, I worked at the Hollywood studios. I'm sorry, it was actually the MGM studios at the time. And I didn't have direct deposit set up yet. I hadn't been there that long, but it was payday and I wanted some cash in my pocket for the weekend. So I thought, well, I'll just drive on out to the studios and pick up my paycheck. So my brother said, yeah, I'll ride with you. I got nothing better going on. So we got in the car. We get a mile from the house when my gas light comes on. I have no idea how long this has been on. I wasn't the last person to drive the car. Probably would have been best to turn around and wait. But my 16-year-old brain said, the only thing you can do is keep driving and go get your paycheck to get some gas. So we did. Went to the studios, got my check, drove back to the Publix at Summerport for me to cash it. Got back in the car, we pull out on 535, and nobody here is surprised that I ran out of gas. I was. So I walked back into Publix. I exchanged a few dollars for some quarters because I didn't have a cell phone yet. Went to a phone attached to wall, right? And dialed every number I knew. I called my best friend, I called my dad, I called my aunt, I called my neighbor. Nobody's answering the phone because they didn't have cell phones either. Times were tough, right? So I said, all right, the only thing we can do is go get some gas. So we walked down to the 7-Eleven. I bought a gas can, filled it up. We start back down 535 when, of course, what would happen if this was a movie? It starts raining, pouring rain. Walking down 535, pouring rain, big red gas can in hand. When it looks like things are going to change. Suddenly I hear a car horn honk, and I hear, hey, Nick! And I look, and I see one of my classmates driving towards us. And I'm like, yes, this is great. And she waves and keeps going. So we fill up the car, soaking wet. Next day I walk into class, and I see her, and I go, hey, what was that? She said, oh, I saw you yesterday. Was that your brother you were out for a walk with? Out for a walk? It was pouring rain, big red gas can. Oh, I didn't realize you needed help. You know, I honestly believe that she did not realize it. She might have just not wanted to, soaking wet people in her car, maybe, but I really think she didn't realize it. But we do the same thing as Christians. There are people walking by us every single day that are in desperate need for help, and we either don't see it or we choose not to. And instead, what we do is we sit back in our buildings on Sunday mornings, and we huddle around our lights, and we sing great songs about our light, and then we look outside and we go, why is it so dark out there? How has it gotten so dark? What's wrong with people? We either become so apathetic to the situation, we're just so used to it, we're so numb to it, that we think, there's nothing I could do to make a difference anyway. Or sometimes we get so consumed with blending into culture, because we don't want to be the weird people, right? We don't want to be the weird ones, the ones people talk about, so we just try to just fit in. We try to just blend into culture, and our light starts to blend in too. Our light starts to just look dim. Satan is working non-stop to hide our light. He doesn't need any help from us. We can't afford right now here in 2020 to sit on the sidelines. We can't pretend to not see people in trouble because our light is useless while it is hidden. It's useless. I've worked graveyard shift for a long time, doing things like electrical work and that. And there's nothing more annoying than having been working on something for 10 minutes in really bad light when the person you're with finally pulls a flashlight out of their pocket. Does that help? Yeah. That would have helped 10 minutes ago too. Light is useless when it's hidden. And Jesus didn't make us to be hidden. He didn't make us to blend in. He made us to shout from the rooftops, I have the cure. I have the thing that will change your life. It's useless if we hide it. We need to show people, follow me, I can light your path. But we need to be sure of our foundation. We need to be sure of what our light is standing on. It's in your notes. Your light only becomes visible by what it is standing on. Isaiah, again, in chapter 9, he describes a group of people stumbling in the darkness. We all know what that's like. We get up in the middle of the night, try to find our way to the bathroom. We have dogs, so I have to do like the shuffle, so I don't kick a dog and trip and fall or kill the dog. But it's always very helpful when my wife wakes up and she shines her phone so I can see. Isaiah says that there's a people stumbling in the darkness, but they have seen a great light, and that light is you. That light is the church. But the effectiveness of our light is only based on how high it sits. For a church to be effective this year and in this decade, we need to make sure our light is standing on the gospel and our light is standing on compassion, truth, and action. See, there's a lot of churches out there that they know their Bibles really well. They have great teaching on Sunday morning. They have great small groups where they go chapter by chapter through the Bible, and people can quote Nehemiah and Malachi and Matthew, and it's wonderful. But if they're not motivated to get out and actually try to reach people, to try to share that truth with people, to go out and take care of needs in the community, to feed people, to clothe people, that truth stays with them, and that light stays hidden, just sits on the ground gathering dust. We can be like that too. You might know the Bible really well, but if you go to work and you act like a jerk, it doesn't matter if it says John 3:16 on your desk. No one is seeing the light. Likewise, there's churches that have great outreach programs. They take care of people in the community. They're known through the community, but if they never share the truth of Jesus, it doesn't matter. We can be the most positive, encouraging, uplifting people that people want to be around. But if we never share the name of Jesus, lives are not changed. Lives are not saved. The light just stays hidden. So what we need to do as a church is we need to make sure that our light is standing on the gospel and that our light is standing on compassion. And when we do that, then our light will become visible. But it's an and. Truth and action. And it's going to take every single one of us. So if your light starts to feel dim, if you think, I've been carrying this light for a long time, and I don't think I can really make a difference. Let me tell you that even the smallest light cannot be overcome by darkness. Even the smallest light will not be overcome by darkness. So if you're feeling worn out, then it's time to take this year to recharge. To say, I'm going to spend more time in the Word and spend more time in prayer. On the way to work, I'm going to spend that time worshiping God. Maybe I'm going to practice generosity this year. Maybe I'm going to practice gratitude this year and watch how your light starts to shine brighter and brighter. Church, we need action. Because in your notes, your light shines by what you do. Your light shines by what you do. Look at what Paul writes to another church, a church in Ephesus, in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 8 through 10. Verse 8, Paul says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. So live as children of the light." Paul reminds us, he says, hey, listen, every single one of you guys were all darkness. You were stuck in the dark until you saw the light of Jesus for yourself. So don't forget your story. Whether you were 7 or you were 70 when you accepted Christ, you have a story to tell people, to say, I know who I was before Jesus, or I know who I would be without Jesus. Let me tell you why I have hope in my life. Let me tell you why I don't deal with worry or anxiety as much anymore. Be willing to share with people, because when you open up to people, it prompts them to open up to God. Opening up will prompt others to open up. And then Paul says to live as children of the light. So you don't have to tell a rose to be a rose. It just knows what to do. Likewise, he looks at us as the church and says, you're the church. Go be it. But Paul doesn't leave us hanging. He tells us how in verse 9. He says, "For the fruit of the light consists of all goodness, righteousness, and truth." 3 things: goodness, righteousness, truth. Testing what is pleasing to the Lord. So as children of the light, as followers of Christ, we need to look at our lives, we need to look at wherever we are and ask that old question, what would Jesus do? I can bring that back, right? It's been a while since we've used it. What would Jesus do? And what I am doing, is it good? Is it right? Is it full of truth? And we're going to look closer over the next few weeks as to how individually and how as a church we can go out into our communities and do things that are good, right, and true. But for now, we can start looking at our own lives, and we can ask ourselves, God, okay, show me what you want me to do to make my light visible, to make my light stand taller. Okay, you know what, Jesus, you've been telling me to be generous for a long time, and I know I have neglected that. This is going to be the year. 2020 is going to be the year I'm going to be a more giving person, God. Okay, Jesus, you've been telling me to forgive that person for a long time. I've been holding on to this bitterness. It's time to deal with it. Jesus, I'm going to forgive that person. Jesus, you want me to be love? You want me to be kind? You want me to be patient? You want me to be gentle? You want me to show self-control? Jesus, whatever it will take to make your light visible in the world, I will do it. I will make my light stand tall for you, Jesus. He's given us the roadmap. We don't need to be afraid of the darkness. We don't need to be intimidated by the darkness, because our light shines brightest in the darkness. Our light will shine bright and cannot be overcome no matter how much darkness we seem to be surrounded by. Jesus told Peter, he said, the gates of hell will not overcome the church. You know what we get to do, guys, is we get to stand with our light. And when people start to notice and people start to wonder, hey, what's going on with those people? Why are they so happy? What do they have going on? Then we get to point back to the source of our light. We get to show people, we get to light the path for them to come and know Jesus, to come and meet Jesus, to find life-changing hope here, to find freedom here, just like we did. Because light changes everything. What will 2021 look like when we stand here this time next year? What will 2030 look like? Well, it all depends on what we do today. So if you've never made that choice, if you've never realized before today that this light is for you, that Jesus is for you, well, I pray right now you would not wait any longer to finally reach out for that. Life is too short to spend stumbling around in the darkness when there is a solution, when there is a light for you. So find somebody in a green shirt, find somebody, a staff member, and talk to them today, and we want to walk alongside of you on your new journey with Jesus. But if you're a Christian, we're going to commit right now. We're going to commit to holding our light high. To say, you know what, I'm going to be about the gospel and I'm going to be about compassion. If I know the Bible really well, but I've never gone out and actually utilized it, well, I'm going to find a place to serve here in the church. I'm going to go see what the Dream Center is up to. I'm going to get involved there. I'm going to go tomorrow to work and I'm going to share with somebody, invite them to church. Maybe you've been all about action, but you're not really sure what else to do. Join a small group. Be in the Word. Spend that quality time with God, because He's given you everything that you need. Just get up and do something. Paul would write in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 14, awake, sleeper. Get up, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. That's my call for this year, personally in my life. And that should be our call together as a church, to get up and let our light shine. It is time that we as a church take responsibility for the darkness around us. Because darkness can only exist apart from the light of Jesus. Jesus promised that one day He will come back. He will sit on His throne here on the earth, and there will no longer be any need for the sun, because His light will be enough. But for right now, today, He looks at every single one of us, and He says, you are the light of the world. Let's pray. God, we just love You so much. Jesus, each person here, You have found ways to speak through the darkness and into our hearts, so that we could be a new person, so that we could live a full life, and so that we can know hope beyond this life. Jesus, we know there are still way too many people around us that have never seen that light. And God, we want to take responsibility for that. Jesus, we commit to just praying for this area, for praying for the people around us, that you would just open up their eyes, God. Let there be a great awakening here in this community, that people would start to see the light, and God, let it be us that shows it to them. God, if there's someone in here right now, Lord, I pray that you would just speak loudly into their heart, that they would look to you now and say, Jesus, I'm sorry, forgive me for the wrongs I've done in my life. Jesus, thank you for forgiving me. Jesus, show me how to live in light now. And God, for all of us, just let us be willing. Let us be willing and let us be bold to go wherever you call us, into the darkest places around us. Let us be there and let us shine a light for all the world to see your love. Amen.